whichever we want, only we are taking that, we are picking that information which is required for our process is called as data mining. When we come on data processing cycle, there we have input process. That means whatever data we have to process, that we have to put in the processing, where the data may be letters, numbers, symbols, shapes, images, etc. Under this, when we come on database model, there are three types. The first one is hierarchical model, network model, and one more is relational model. Welcome back to one and all. Myself, Vasanta, lecturer in computer science, Vidhyaashram, Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysore. Today, we will start with a revision class on database concepts. Whereas in the annual exam, from this chapter, you can expect 11 marks in the annual exam. Because in part A, one question you will get for 1 mark. In part B, one question for 2 marks. In part C, one question for 3 marks. In part D, one question for 5 marks. It means that totally 4 questions you will get from each and every part. Part A, B, C, D. And in part A, 1 marks, 2 marks, 3 marks, and then 5 marks. Totally 11 marks you can expect from this chapter. On this chapter, you will study regarding the introduction to database concept. What do you mean by data, information, how exactly it will process, what is the difference between manual and electronic data processing, especially regarding the introduction to database concept. Then with that ER diagram, that is entity relationship diagram, data processing cycle, DBMS architecture, as well as database model. These are the few major concepts you will study on this particular chapter. First, we'll discuss on 1 mark questions. Under that, what is data? For example, if I'm going to write 123, then here it will not going to give specific meaning, whether it's a register number, bus number, or phone number. Then it can be called as data. For example, if I'm going to write register number equals 123, then this can be called as information. Whereas data does not going to give specific meaning, it is a raw facts, figures and statistics. Whereas information will going to give specific meaning, it is a processed data. Then data is a collection of facts, figures, statistics which can be processed to produce meaningful information. Can be called as data here. Then what is tuple? Consider you have one table. On this table, we have the table name is student. Under that, we have a register number, name, marks. Then here, we have the register number and name X, marks 20. We have one more register number, name and then 30. Then tuple is nothing but the records here. A single entry in a table, full entire information of one student can be called as tuple, or you can say it as record also. Single entry in a table is called as tuple or record. Next, we have what is normalization. When we come on normalization, it is a process of organizing the data in a database is called as normalization. We can able to divide the table into small unit to access in easy way. For that purpose, we need normalization. We can divide the table into subtables here in normalization. Next question, what is key? When we come on key, here, if I'm going to consider name is a primary key, then it cannot be considered as a primary key because the name may be repeat. For example, primary key is a unique value in the table. By using that, we can able to access the records here. Whereas if I'm going to consider name is a primary key, then it will not work because name may be repeat. If I'm going to consider register number is a primary key, then it can be considered because here the value, whatever value in the register number, that will never repeat for anybody. That's a unique value. That is a set of one or more columns whose combination values are unique among all occurrence in a given table is called as key here. When we come on keys, primary key, secondary key, alternative key, super key, foreign key, like that vessel types of keys. Next, what do you mean by data mining? Whereas data mining, it is just a process of picking, or we can say taking the required information from huge information is called as data mining. In a database, we have all type of information, all the data, all the information, everything is there. Under that, whichever we want, only we are taking that, we are picking that information which is required for our process is called as data mining. A technique which is concerned with the analysis and picking out relevant information is called as data mining. Next one, for 2 marks, name the data types supported by DBMS. Under that, there are several types of data types we can use. Under that, integer. It is a whole number. It does not have any fractional number. For example, if I am to write 2, then it is an integer number. 2 point, some value, any number, then it can be called as here float numbers. Here I can able to declare the integer values. I can use character data type. I can use string data type. But when they come on character, it consists only one character, opened as well as closed by single quotes. But when they come on string, it is a collection of characters. For example, NAME. Then it can be called as string, we can able to use. Then text field, it contains data alphanumeric text format. Then date field, in a table, for example, for student date of birth, if I want to enter, then we require date type of fields here. Then the next question here, for 2 marks, what is the difference between serial and direct access file organization? When they come on file organization, it mainly deals with how records are arranged, especially on which way it is arranged, how we can able to access. Under that, we have serial file organization, sequential file organization, direct file organization, as well as index sequential file organization. Whereas here, the difference between serial as well as direct file organization. In serial, all the records are arranged one after the another. But if I want to access the last record, then from the beginning only I have to access here in serial. Whereas here, the storage media we are using magnetic tape, the cost of that is very less and maintenance also very easy here. It will arrange all the records in chronological order. Whereas in direct file organization, wherever I want, there I can able to insert the record, whichever record I want, directly I can able to access that record, we can able to process that. But when they come on cost wise, it is more because we required direct access storage device we required. That's why the cost is more in direct file organization. But here, when they come on serial, the time consumption is more. Whereas here in direct, time consumption is very less. This is the major difference between serial as well as direct access file organization. Whereas records are arranged one after the another, one by one all the records are arranged. Direct access to individual record of the file. Directly we can able to access wherever we want, we can able to insert. Data is stored in the chronological order on which way inserted, and that way only it will all the records are stored. Data is stored randomly, but whichever record I want, directly I can able to access here. This file is stored in continuous storage device like magnetic tape. Here we are using magnetic tape as a storage device. Whereas here direct files are stored in the magnetic disk here, that is direct access storage device we are using here. The next question lists the components of data warehouse. But when they come on data warehouse, it is a place where we can able to store organization electrically stored information here. Under that we have data source, data transformation, reporting, metadata, as well as operations. These are the components of data warehouse. Next, for 3 marks, you can expect give the difference between manual and electronic file system. Or you can get this question for 3 marks as well as for 5 marks also you can expect this question. Whereas here manual means work is done by human beings, whereas electronic is nothing but the work is done by with some electronic devices. In manually what happens, from the beginning, from morning to till evening, if I want to do some particular work, then I'm get tired, is it no? Whereas in electronic devices, from the morning till evening, the system is doing the same work, then it will not going to get any tiredness. In human beings, what happens, the accuracy will reduce us, Whereas in electronic, the accuracy will never reduces. And time consumption will be more in manual, whereas in electronic, time consumption will be less. Then in manual we require paperwork. To do any work, to do any operation we require paperwork, whereas in electronic we does not require any paperwork. And storage media, in manual we are using papers, whereas here the magnetic devices are used in the electronic. This is the major difference. First one, the volume of data which can be processed is limited in a desired time. Whereas here the volume of data which can be processed is very large. And here this data processing requires large quantity of papers we required in manual, whereas here this data processing requires reasonable less amount of papers. Then here the speed and accuracy is limited, whereas here speed and accuracy is more here. Then labor cost is high, labor cost is economical, reasonable. And here storage media we are using paper, and here storage media we are using secondary storage medium. That is magnetic tape, magnetic disk we are using here. This is a major difference between manual and electronic data processing. Next one, give the different notations for ER diagram. ER diagram can be called as entity relationship diagram. For example, we have one student here. We have one student. This can be called as entity. Entity is a real-time objects and which having some behavior. This behavior, the students may have name, register number, marks 1, marks 2, date of birth, address. Like that we have some attributes. Then from this what exactly we will come to know? Whereas this is the shape of entity, that is here we have entity, that is rectangular shape we are using. Then weak entity, if it is weak entity, then this symbol we are using. Associative entity, then we are using this particular symbol. Whereas entity relationship diagram is mainly used to represent the operation in diagrammatical format. Then attributes, nothing but behaviors. Attributes can be represented in oval shape. Then if you have relations, then we are using this symbol. If the particular attribute, if it is a primary key, on this if you observe the register number is a primary key, there we have to put one underline here. Then here if it is weak relationship, then we are using this symbol. These are the few symbols we are using to represent any relationship in a database. The data, their attribute, their relationship, like that we can able to represent here. Consider here student we have, and here we have one more entity, faculty. This faculty also have some attributes, and here the relation between these two will be represented in diamond shape. The faculty will teach the student. Like that we can able to represent the relationship here. Strong relationship. Now these are the few symbols we are using in ER diagram. Next we will move on 5 marks questions. Here explain data processing cycle. When they come on data processing cycle, it is the information is processed. How exactly the information is processed in a computer? Information management system is called as data processing system. How data exactly? It will convert in data into useful information. Under this, which are the stages it follows? There we have first data input, data processing, then data output, data information, communication. These are the few stages of data processing cycle. Whereas already I told you, data is a raw facts figures and information is a processed data. Whereas the data processing means it will convert, it's a series of actions. It converts data into information. Under that, these are the stages we have, that is data input, data processing, data communication, data output, data information. Yes, when they come on data processing cycle, there we have input process. That means whatever data we have to process, that we have to put in the processing, where the data may be letters, numbers, symbols, shapes, images, etc. We will enter into a process, etc. will enter into a process. And here, after that, here the data is entered into a computer using input devices like keyboard, mouse, scanner, microphone, digital camera, etc. With these devices, we can able to enter the data to the computer for processing purpose. Then under processing, it is a series of actions or operations from input data to generate output. Here it is a series of actions. It will convert data into information. Under this, it will perform the calculation, sorting, indexing, accessing data, everything, all the operations will perform under processing stages. Next, we have storage. After processing, the information has to be stored for future purpose. That is, here user data and information are stored in a storage medium. Whereas, whatever data we are given with the help of input devices, that will process. After processing, we have to store the data for future purpose. That can be done in storage stage. Whereas output, the result obtained after processing must be present to the user in human understandable format here. How users want, on that way we can able to represent here. And the next one is communications. When they come on communication, the data may be transferred or processed in a remote area by using wire or wireless communication. From one place to another place, whatever data, whatever information we have, the processed information can be communicated with a wiring connection or without wiring connection. And these are the few stages of data processing cycle. Next, we will move on, explain DBMS architecture. What do you mean by DBMS architecture? How exactly the process will perform is the process of representing essential features without including the background detail or explanation is called as data abstraction. Then what do you mean by that? Consider, I want to ride the bike. I just want to ride the bike, but I'm not bothered how exactly in the background it is working, which type of engine they are used, which the technology they used. That is nothing but data abstraction, that is representation of essential features without considering the background details. For example, I want to use the mobile. Just I want to use the mobile, I want to operate the mobile, that's all. But I'm not bothered which is the technique they are using, how they are transferring the information from one mobile to another mobile. Is it? No. That is nothing but data abstraction. A main purpose of database system is to provide the abstract view of data to the user, but it hides the certain details of how data are stored and maintained in the system here. It mainly hides the unwanted things from the user. Next, when they come on database system, under that we have three levels. The first one is internal level, conceptual level, external level. Whereas internal level mainly deals with the physical storage area, where exactly it is stored, on which place it is stored. But when they come on conceptual level, there it mainly deals with the logical structure of the data. What is the data? Which data type it is? What is the relationship between the data? Regarding that, mainly it will deals. Whereas here, in internal or physical level, mainly deals with the physical structure, where exactly it is stored. Whereas at a conceptual level, it mainly deals on the logical structure of the data, the schema, sub-schema, everything here it will concern. Whereas external level mainly deals with how the user wants to view the data. For example, we have some information. Some users want the same information. They want to see in table format. And some users want to see the same information in graph format. And some users want to see the same information in paragraph format. How the user want, on that way, data can be, as well as informations can be viewed in external level. This is regarding internal level, conceptual level, external level. Whereas internal level is the lowest level of data abstraction that deals with the physical representation of data on the computer, physically where exactly it is stored. But when you're on conceptual level, it deals with the logical structure of the entire database. What is that data, which data type it is, how much space it required, regarding that mainly it will deals. But when they come on external level, it's the highest level of the data abstraction that deals with the user view of database especially. These are the three levels of data abstraction, internal, conceptual as well as external level. Next, we will move on, explain database model. What do you mean by first of all model? For example, I'm going to give one Taj Mahal model to you. Then from that, what exactly you will observe? The color of the Taj Mahal, the shape of the Taj Mahal, color, shape, design, how exactly it is arranged, what is the structure, how many windows are there, how many entries are there, everything you will study it, no? In the same way, in database model, it mainly describes the structure of the database. Under this, when you come on database model, there are three types. The first one is hierarchical model, network model, and one more is relational model. There are three types of model. That is hierarchical model, network model, as well as a relational model. In the exam, you can expect each model for 5 marks. Whereas database model is an abstract model that describes how the data is represented and it is used. It defines the logical design of the data. And the model describes the relationship between different parts of the data. Which is the data? What is the relationship? Regarding that, mainly it will deals. Next, when we come on one by one the models, under that the first one is hierarchical model. Already I told you. Whereas in hierarchical model is the oldest type of data model. This model developed by IBM, and here the hierarchical model data model organizes the data in the format of tree-like structure. Mainly you have to remember all the data will represent in the format of tree-shaped structure in which each child node can have only one parent node here. If you observe here, for this parent we have only one child here. In the format of tree structure, all the data are arranged here. The top of the tree structure contains a single node that does not have any parent. Node is called as root node. This is the root node, and these are the child nodes. One-to-one relationship it follows. Next one, network model. But when you come on network model, is that a parent node can have any number of child nodes, and a child node also have many parent node also. If you consider this is the child node, this child have two parents. If I'm going to consider this child also having two parents. There is no any conditions that one-to-one relationship here we have to follow. The network data model permits many-to-many relationship in the database. And here, if you observe here, especially all data will be represented in the format of graph shape, in which some entities can be accessed through several paths. If I want to access this ID, then I can access from this path as well as from this path. From many paths I can able to access. The main thing here, the data will represented in the format of graph shape. Next one, we will move to the next one, that is relational model. But when you come on relational model, all the data will represented in the format of table structure. Whereas in hierarchical model, tree structure. Whereas in network model, graph structure. Whereas in relational model, in the format of table structure, in the format of table, all the data will arrange it here. And this model is developed by EF Code in 1970. And here, in the relational model, there are no physical link exactly here. All data is maintained in the form of tables. Especially you have to remember, all the data will represent in the format of tables. It contains in the table, we have the table name. For example, student we have. On the students, we have the register number, subheading, name, and then for example, marks. From this, I can observe that I can describe the attributes, I can describe which are the columns on this. We have tuples, records, and domain we have. This is domain, this is record. How exactly it is arranged, what is the primary key under that. Always the primary key cannot be null like that. We can able to apply some conditions here. Whereas the relationship between two tables is implemented through a common attribute in the table. This makes the querying search easier in a relational database system. This mainly represent all the data in the format of table structure. If you observe here, in this we have all the data, for example, department, number and name, professor. There also we have some attributes. Like this, we have some attributes here. Everything will represent in the format of table format. And here we have the related information will store here. That is records we have, domains we have, the relationship between is there, and with the primary key, everything we can able to represent in the relational model. Then this completes your database concept chapter. It means that on this class you have studied regarding what do you mean by data, information, what do you mean by data processing, then which are the stages of data processing cycle, the difference between manual and electronic data processing, how exactly it will work, the difference between manual and electronic data processing. That is a major question. With that, you have studied regarding what do you mean by database model, under that hierarchical model, network model, relational model, how exactly it will work, how data will stored, what do you mean by data abstraction. These are the major concepts you have studied. In the next class, we will meet you once again with a new chapter. Thank you for all of you.